What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, continuing my deep dive into Santana's studio albums. This is the 90s. There's only three of them. 90, 92, took a break, came back in 99 with Rob Thomas and others at the helm and became a superstar as we went into the new millennium, new century, new year, as Y2K hit. All right, that's it. I'm going to rank these from 3 to 1, and then I'll incorporate these and all the ones from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And that'll be it. Zappa connections, there's a lot, but the Carlos Santana secret chord progression. That's really all we needed. All right, here we go. On to number 3. My number 3 is 1990s Spirits Dancing in the Flesh, his 16th. There's a lot of covers on here. Curtis Mayfield cover, Jimi Hendrix cover, a Coltrane cover. The Coltrane and Jimi Hendrix are kind of merged into one with a Santana song in the middle. That's probably the weakest part of it. And Is Isley Brothers cover, Who's That Lady? That's just absolutely should never have been done. Ranks up there with one of my least favorite covers of all time. Yeah, they recover Jingo from their debut album, but it's Jingo Loba, more in line with the Fisher Olantuji's original version, more vocals, just truer to the original. But I mean, you already did it. Now you're going back to that well. Really bad 80s drum sound on a lot of these, some bad 80s sort of funk bass sound that doesn't work. Opens up in a promising way, Let There Be Light into Spirits Dancing in the Flesh. Kind of, you get that chill synth vibe, kind of ease us in as the sun rises, kind of a dawn type feel, some gospel-y vocals, some spoken word, then percussion comes in. And the energy is good, but we got some bad sounds here. We're still early 1990. We're still got 80s hangover. It's kind of an okay track. And then Soweto, Africa Libre, an instrumental, has some cool sax. I think it's by Wayne Shorter is playing the sax. Actually, kind of a nice little moment on here. You also have like Womack is doing vocals. Vernon Reid is on guitar for some of this. Like you have some guests, but the drum sounds are horrible. It's either a lot of new aginess whenever we get to like the instrumentals and like the synth sounds. That Who's That Lady is horrible. The last song is Alive, got chill instrumental. Alive is live. Goodness and Mercy. But I don't know, there's just nothing really all that memorable, and it just sounds pretty bad. But as is the case with all these 90s albums, Carlos's guitar is always interesting. Problem is, after a while, it's just that's the saving grace in so many of these, either because of the dated sound or just the sort of uninspired, treading the same ground songs. Carlos is always bringing it, so you always have that to look forward to. But especially on this album, everything else is kind of rough. But my number 3, Spirits Dancing in the Flesh. Number 2 is 1999 Supernatural, his 18th. I wanted to put this last simply because it has Smooth and Maria, the two songs which I think have, in a weird way for a lot of people, have defined what the Santana sound is, and maybe even Santana boils down his sound to some pop monstrosity in Smooth and Maria. Neither one of those songs I like, but all over the radio, huge back in the day. Yeah, we got a lot of guest artists on here, and I don't think any of them really help. Dave Matthews sings on a song and sounds like Sting. Sounds like 90s Sting. What else do we have? We got the Rob Thomas and Smooth. Dun, 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 dun. Lauryn Hill and CeeLo Green on a song called Do You Like the Way? Bringing a little hip-hop flavor in, a little funkiness, interesting. I mean, at least it's not something Santana's done before. There is this interesting thing, though, is even with all these guest stars on here and sort of experimenting with different subgenres of music, it all ultimately kind of sounds like Santana. And maybe it would have been more interesting had he done this at a time where I think his songwriting was a little more inspired. There is some okay stuff on here. The song Migra, Pinche Migra. Really cool pounding rock groove. Kind of sounds like a cross between I Want Candy and Who Do You Love, with this awesome just rhythm and just some nice squealing guitar, some great bass playing, chants of migra, migra, pinche migra, just some really good energy in that. Towards the end of the album, you have a song, The Calling, with Eric Clapton, that kind of works. It's got some really good guitar playing in it. I think it just works. Uh, Clapton immediately gets a lot of playing, and just to hear the difference between the two players, I think Clapton, just as a guitar player, his songwriting, his songs he chose tailed off towards the end, but as a guitar player, really interesting here. Just a great jam, essentially, between Carlos and Santana, kind of echoing back or revisiting or making a connection between that awesome jam in the 70s when they jammed on Eyesight to the Blind and Why Does Love Have to Be So Sad? So that's on Clapton's Crossroads too, if you haven't heard it. But other than that, it's just, I know the opening track is kind of cool. Opening Yaleo is kind of cool, kind of just upbeat energy, kind of positive. Like there's a really positive vibe about this album. I just think a lot of the songs are just generic rock pop with Latin flavor, some experimentation. It's just kind of hit and miss. It's just kind of all over the place. But it's got Maria, Maria, and Smooth, two songs I just can't. Dun dun dun. There's another song on here that has that dun dun dun. Kind of almost sounds like he's trying to redo Smooth on the same album, Corazon Espinado, featuring Mana. Kind of a spoon version, Smooth version too. Yeah. Anyways, I think it's kind of a rough listen, to be honest, but this was the big one. Some great guitar playing, some great solos. Clapton shows up. The CeeLo Lauryn Hill thing's kind of interesting. It's just not bad. It just, at its worst, is just kind of generic, despite all the stars. And Dave Matthews sounds like 90s Sting. All right, on to number one. My number one for the 90s is Milagro. Came out in 1992. Not a fantastic album, but I think it's here because at times it's the least offensive of all of them. Doesn't have the horrible production of Spirits, doesn't have just the trying too hardness of Supernatural and Smooth and Maria Maria. Some great guitar playing. At times, at its worst, it's like adult contemporary Santana music, new agey, not maybe a little softer, just a little smoother around the edges. Average songs, great guitar playing. Spiritually, it just has a good vibe. It opens up with an actual recording of Bill Graham, who had passed away, I think, the previous year, right? Was it in 91? Him doing an introduction of Santana, and then that goes into a studio song, but it's neat to have that Bill Graham sort of connection here. Some okay songs, like Somewhere in Heaven, the second song is like 10 minutes long. The first, like, what is it? The first 2.5 minutes, the last 2.5 minutes are just kind of this jazzy contemporary guitar ballad that's not too interesting. But then there's this 3.5 minute jam in the middle that's absolutely fantastic. It's just, yeah, this Jimmy-esque riff, this upbeat solo, great energy. Unfortunately, it's buried between these somewhat things. We get some nice, we just get some nice grooves on here, some nice piano. A couple of these songs, just some good energy. Like there's an almost 9 minute Saha into Right On. Good little vibe, some nice bass playing, a nice riff. It's just like nothing happens over the course of it. It just feels like it's kind of just, you know, it's like stuck in a rut. Red Prophet is a pretty cool song, instrumental. Really, the bass sound and is not that good, nor the synths, but it's got a jazzy vibe to it. Nice piano solo in there, nice guitar solo, some interesting drums at the end. Kind of interesting. Agua que va caer is a pretty cool song. Great guitar solo, great percussion, some really good piano again. Really nice piano throughout this whole thing. Who is that? Chester D. Thompson, I think, is on piano, doing some fantastic work to keep things a little more interesting throughout this. And then towards the end, there's a song called We Don't Have to Wait. Absolutely great guitar intro. Nice kind of rock groove, funky little instrumental. We get an organ solo, some quote unquote legitimate shredding by Carlos Santana. And then the closing song, Adios to God. We get a crazy saxophone shows up and just does some really cool sax stuff for a very, very, very brief time. Not a bad album, and I think it's the most listenable of these three. It's just kind of bland at times. It just plays it maybe a little too safe. But I think we're far enough from the 80s where the sound isn't bad, and we're not yet just like, hey, inviting whoever wants to show up and jam with us, which, I don't know, detracts a little bit from the pureness of Carlos or something. I don't know. But anyways, it's my number one for the 90s, Milagro. That's what those three look like in typewritten form. Probably don't need to put that up, as you can probably remember. And there is the complete list. Milagro made the top 10. Not sure that's right, but it's not offensive. It's just bland. And everything else has stuff on there that I'm like, ugh, ugh. Or has a more disappointing drop off, where this at least seems like we're coming back up to sort of some norm. I even have Supernatural 11, as much as there are some good moments on that. And it was a hit. But yeah, Spirits at 16. That's probably, once we get past Festival, it's all kind of down there. So anyways, yeah, that's what I got for now. I reserve the right to change those. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of these albums. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do all those things. And I'm going to drop the 2 live albums he dropped in the 90s. I'll have a review of that before the week is up. But yeah, all right, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Peace. Talk to you later.